Yeah, if you can mute yourselves. Yeah, good. I can mute as 763. Okay. Everybody but me gets to talk. What a pleasure. Okay, so come into semi-supine position, please. So what that consists in, Joanna, if you're not sure about this, is that you come into the lying down forward-facing position on the floor with your feet wide, usually a bit wider than your mat, certainly wider than your pelvis. And you try to turn the inside edges of the feet onto the floor. So you've got the legs rotating outwards, okay? But if that just isn't easy to do from your hip point of view, put the tops of the feet on the floor instead, okay? And then you want to support your head, either with one forearm resting on top of the other in front of you, or with one fist resting on top of the other fist. The idea here is to have the chest elevated off of the floor, okay? So the chest is elevated. Most of the sternum is on the floor, certainly the bottom part, but the top part and middle part are lifted. So you can feel like you've got the rib cage down on the ground, all the way to the point of where the rib cage turns at the crest, at the base of the sternum. So at the base of the sternum, you get this kind of lifting of the heart center away from the floor, okay? By and large, it's a passive posture. So once you're set up, you just rest into it. But you definitely want the elevation of the chest and the belly resting on the floor, okay? So we'll spend the first couple of minutes, as we always do, really just letting go of the day, letting go of the cycles of activity. To the extent that we can do that, breathe them out, breathe out the mental content that's occupying us now. Just let that become more, less the focus of our attention. So thoughts are usually dominating our experience. Much of our waking lives are dominated by flows and chains of thought related to one thing or another. And it's not that we stop our thinking during our yoga practice, but we notice that it recedes more into the background, as it were, and ceases to be such a focal point. So the mind will tend to go more towards what we're doing immediately in the yoga practice, which is what we want. So encouraging that sense of presence of awareness of your body. Whichever way you want to do that, you can simply connect with the breath straight away and begin to use the diaphragm much more. And you can also just take your time coming into that breath pattern if you're not already using it as well. Or you can scan through the body a few times, from the feet through the body, through the trunk to the head and back down again. So you're bringing into the scope of your awareness your physical, energetic presence. And our body just isn't just a lump of palpating flesh. It's more than that. There's the energetic level of the body as well. So you can connect with the energetic level of the body. You can connect with the breath body. So in a way, our yoga practice at its best can develop not only our concept of the body, but our experience of our organism as a whole. It develops our experience. We become more sensitized. Through the practice of yoga, you, in a sense, kind of grow the body, grow the awareness of it. So we're going to encourage ourselves in the breathing by way of a relaxing and rhythmic breath. Keeping the attitude towards the breath also relaxed. Okay, so we're not trying to achieve some great and profound experience in the breath. We're simply trying to use the breath in the way that it's optimizing the use of oxygen and connecting us to our practice and the movement within our practice as well. Okay. So just another 5 breaths in crocodile pose. Now really take your attention into the breath and try and follow the in-breath and the out-breath for the next 5 breaths. So now we're going to move into a more classical form of Bhujangasana. So we won't go into the most demanding position that we can manage. We'll come into a sort of submaximal position. So I'd like you, from where you are now, to slide your forearms onto the floor forwards in front of you, so that your elbows are sitting more or less just in front of the shoulders, a little bit wider than your shoulders. And have your hands down on the floor. You can bring your hands into the center if you want to. You make a kind of triangle out of the thumb and the index finger, or you can keep the hands and arms in line with the shoulders. Okay. So don't think about bringing your elbows too close in, because you will straight away demand too much of the lumbar spine. Keep this fairly soft to start with. Okay. And then I'd like you just to sort of clarify a very short sequence of setup in this posture, by way of, first of all, energizing the legs. So we're going to engage the legs and keep the legs energetically extending backwards towards the feet. Okay. Pubic bone pressing down towards the floor, so that we tuck the tailbone under very slightly, and we keep the action of the tailbone tucking down. And then from there, think about the kidneys and the chest lifting away from the floor. So the forearms grounding themselves down, feet grounding themselves down as well, and the thighs. And then the kidneys lifting. You're looking forwards, okay? So just like the Sphinx, as this pose is sometimes referred to as the Sphinx. Looking forwards to the horizon. And just steadying the attention in the spine and the breath. So there's a sense of continual lifting through the ground, through the pose, through the arms, towards the crown of the head. So encouraging the sense of the shoulders to draw down and back, and the head to stay aligned and forwards. Okay. And the legs remain energized. I'm just going to continue doing this practice for another 4 breaths. And then we're going to slide the elbows wide out to the side and lie back down on the front of the body. Head to one side, arms come down by the side of the chest, with the thumbs tucked just underneath the floating ribs, so quite far back. So the thumbs come in just slightly under the floating rib. And you keep your elbows nice and closely hugged into the sides of the body. Okay, think about the same action again. So extending through the legs, grounding the pubic bone, which means tucking the tailbone under. And on the in-breath, you're going to lift, as if lifting out of the base of the feet, all the way through the body. So you're using the strength of the back, and as you exhale, you're going to tuck the chin under and lower the body down. Okay. So the head leads up, but this is coming from the base of the feet, through the legs, through the trunk, lifting up on the inhale, exhale, folding down. We'll do that 4 more times, leading with the head, extending back through the feet, exhale, folding down. And once again, lifting with the head, gazing forwards. Exhale, coming down. Okay. Pressing down through the hands, lift yourself up onto all 4s now. And we're going to go through the sequence of cat-cow a number of times. Okay. So very conscious of these movements we're making through the poses, as always. So quite often Bhujangasana, the pose highlights tightness in the lumbar spine. You notice that you can feel when you come out of the pose. Sometimes you feel a highlighting of sensation in the lumbar. All right. Let's come down again, please. Come onto the front of your body. I'm going to slide the elbows a little bit further forwards. No, that's wrong. We're going to bring them further back towards us. So think about where you were before. Just want to bring your elbows a bit further in this time. Take your feet a little bit wider, even as wide as your mat or just off of the mat. Okay. So this time we want the hands to be in line with the shoulders, not together. And ground your forearms down, spread your fingers, and place the hand down as well. Okay. So the pose is rooting itself through the hands and the ankles, as well as the forearms, and the tops of the feet and the thighs. Okay, make that little action of the tailbone again, tucking it down by pressing the pubic bone to the floor. And then from there, drawing the kidneys and the heart center up, looking forwards to the horizon again. So now we can't but breathe down through the diaphragm. You notice this particular setup of the position of the pose encourages a breath into the diaphragm. You can't but avoid use the diaphragm here. Yeah. Okay, widening the elbows, I'd like you to lower yourself down again to the floor. Bring your hands in just as before with the small, the thumbs somewhere near the floating ribs, just tucked under there, elbows close in. Keep your heel of the hand down on the floor. And then you want to bring your feet closer together, okay? Same thing again. So on the in-breath, think about this leading from the feet, tops of the feet, grounding, pubic bone pressing down, lifting up. Exhaling, drawing the chin in and lowering the head down. Okay. So leading from the feet, extending through the body, through the trunk. Kidneys lifting to the heart center. Looking forwards, exhale. Once again. And one last time. Holding the position this time, a few more breaths, looking forwards towards the horizon. Okay, pushing ourselves back again. So this time we're going to transfer straight into downward facing dog, taking the hands further forwards, perhaps. Lifting up the pelvis. Grounding the hands, lengthening the arms. Seeing where your weight falls on the hands and how that affects the arms and into your shoulders. Okay, so you can always freely play around a bit with where you put the pressure and the weight. See if you can lengthen the neck a little bit more out of the shoulders, keeping the shoulders nice and broad. The waist lengthening to the hips and the hips lifting. So there's a powerful sense of lift through the pose, even though we're trying to lower the heels. There's still a sense of drawing up, so we engage the thighs. Okay, going to bring the left foot in about 45 degrees. Step your right foot forwards. Don't overextend. And bring your hands down just beneath your shoulders for a moment if you can. Look into the floor. You're going to soften the front knee. And you're going to emphasize extending back through the back leg. So really put some energy into the back leg, grounding the heel and the ball of the foot, spreading the toes. Yeah. And then you're going to press up from there, keeping the torso straight. Inhale, lift the arms above the head. Let the arms float down by the side of the body for a moment. Okay, so just check that your stance is not too wide. You don't want to be any wider than the length of one of your legs in terms of the space between the feet. Okay, it is possible to over adjust this pose. Want the trunk and the torso facing forwards. You've got the heart center and the hips in line. I'm going to pay attention to this back leg. So we really want to keep the energy moving through the back leg through the whole sequence that we're about to do. All right, now on the inhale, raise the arms, arching the spine gently back. On the exhale, keep the spine long, still arching back as we lower forwards. Then we take the hands down onto the floor and fold into the leg, chin towards the knee. Okay. Inhale, coming up onto the fingertips, lengthening through the spine, looking forward slightly. Exhale, folding into the leg again. Once again, inhale, use the breath, the smoothness of the in-breath, the lift. Extending the spine, exhale, folding in. So we're moving directly between flexion and extension of the spine. Keep the attention in the back leg throughout the whole sequence. Yeah. Okay, with your next in-breath, you're going to press down firmly through the front foot. Come up with the spine lengthening, arms forwards, one smooth movement. Back to standing, and then let the arms drop down again by the side of the body. And on your next in-breath, floating the arms up again, palms facing each other, arching back gently. On the out-breath, bending the front knee, so keep your awareness through the back leg, don't forget. Hands down and folding in as much as you can to the shin. With a full out-breath. On the in-breath, extending the spine. Looking forward slightly. On the exhale, fold. Once again, next inhale, you're going to lift and extend the spine. Reaching out through the crown of the head as well. And fold. And once again, onto the fingertips if you need to allow you to lift the spine into extension more. Fold into the leg, full exhalation. With the next in-breath, press down through the front foot. Inhale, smooth movement up. Sweeping movement, arms down by the side. Once the arms touch the side, and step the back foot forwards. Step the opposite foot back. Okay, so setting up your tram lines. Certainly consider the width of your own pelvis and make your legs and your feet sit in line with the width of your pelvis. Okay. So trunk arranged, again, looking forwards to the front edge of the mat, gazing to the horizon. Nice soft gaze, keeping the internal awareness in the breath. Physical awareness in terms of the posture and the back leg rooting. Okay, next in breath, smooth movement with the arms up. With the out breath, we glide forwards, keeping the spine long. So we're sort of keeping the back in extension until we reach the floor with the hands, and then exhale into flexion. Coming up to the fingertips if you need to, extending, looking forward slightly, exhale. Inhale again. Just really get a feel for the contrast there between extension, much more powerful movement, and then the passivity, folding forwards. Yeah. It's like you've been through yin and yang tendencies. Folding. Pressing down through the front foot, one smooth movement on the in-breath, all the way back up to standing, palms facing. Drawing the arms back, exhale, arms come down. Float the arms up again on the next in-breath, palms still looking at each other. All the way back, exhale, keeping the spine extended. So the pelvis helps us here. We transmit our weight through the pelvis over to the spine into flexion. Inhale onto fingertips, extending the spine. Exhale, folding forwards. Inhale, so we're going to use the breath in a very complete way. On the in-breath and a full exhalation on the passive. Exhale, releasing the spine, folding forwards as much as you can. Inhaling, extending the spine as much as you can. Wonderful. So we might have done one too many there. Never mind. Next in-breath, press down through the foot. Inhale, up you come. Exhale, let the arms float down by the side of the body. When the hands just touch the sides, step forwards. Okay, next in-breath, palms looking towards each other. Raise the arms above the head. Exhale, folding forwards, taking the hands down, walking your feet back and coming into the downward facing dog pose. I'd like you to take your feet just slightly wider than your pelvis. And your hands, bring the small fingers to the outer edge of the mat. So keep the hands inside the mat, but just take the small fingers right onto the outer edge. Okay. So from here, we're going to bend the knees, keep the elbows lengthening. Lift the pelvis high as we can, pressing onto the balls of the feet, then the toes. You get a sense that as if you were trying to reach the ceiling with the base of your hip bones. Lifting up, powerfully lifting up. So you feel you activate the beginnings of Uddiyana Bandha, Mula Bandha, the belly drawing back in. And then release the heels down. See if you can maintain something of the height of the pelvis, even as you lower the heels down. Keeping the sense of lift and engagement through the legs and through the arms. And then shifting your weight forwards, coming into the high plank position. Just lowering the pelvis down. So we take advantage of this long pose, lengthening out the whole body. Take your knees down and then lie down on the front of the body again. Would like you to now take the hands down. So we're going to bring the feet together. Just take the hands down and place the hands just underneath either the superior iliac crest, so those two bones that are pointing out at the top of your pelvis at the front, or take your hands down to the tops of the thighs, a bit more inwards. Okay, so you've got two options. For some people, putting the hands underneath the bones there doesn't necessarily help in the pose. It's a proportional issue. Okay, for other people, they prefer to put the hands just under the tops of the thighs, where the groins are, basically. Okay. So place your chin down, keep your chin tucked in slightly, but on the floor. You're engaged with your legs, first of all. So now we're rooting down strangely through the chest. Yep. So rooting down through the pelvis and through the chest and through the chin. So these are our points of contact with the ground. And then we're going to lift the legs. So if it doesn't work for you to have the hands under the pelvic bones, you're going to have to slide your hands further down and in, okay? Then I just want you to lift both legs together, keeping the legs extending. Raising the legs up as high as you can. Going to hold that there, looking forwards. And lower the legs down. Smooth movement to the floor. Keep on engaging through the legs. Once again, okay, so engaging and grounding through the chest, through the chin, through the arms and the hands, then lifting. You can press your elbows back to the floor slightly, back to the forearms. Exhale and draw the legs down, okay? And do this one more time from this position. So lifting on an in-breath. Three or five full breaths. and lower our legs down. Okay, from there, if you place your hands by the chest, you're going to press yourself back and onto the floor, tucking your tailbone really well under. So we come into this balasana stretch, as we call it sometimes, where you're bringing the tailbone underneath and sort of pushing up the kidney area and the lumbar spine as you come back. Yeah, so you're pushing up and out, tucking the tailbone well under. Then you come forwards, smooth movement, looking forwards. When we come back again, as we come back again, same action. So we're tucking the tailbone under and lifting the lumbar spine up and back. So we feel that we're filling it out and stretching the area. Then you come forwards again. There's a few more times. So be very aware of the action of the tailbone, very aware of the sensations in the lumbar. Yeah, drawing back, drawing back. What you're doing in effect is lengthening the lumbar structures, especially the ligaments and the base of the paraspinal area. Yeah, so you're offering there some stretch to that area. Okay, let's come down again to lying in our front. We're going to practice Vipada, Adho Mukha, Shalabhasana. So you need to make sure you've got enough space either side of your shoulders to lengthen your arms out to the sides. Okay, so you're setting up in a kind of mock aeroplane position. Height of the shoulders, palms of the hands down, chin on the floor, feet together. Okay, so from here, we're going to attempt to lift everything off the floor so that we come to rest on the front of the pelvis. If that's too full on, then you can alternate between one leg and the other. Okay, so you make it more dynamic. So extending out wide to the sides, you're exaggerating the lateral broadening of the body. And then you're lengthening through the legs to exaggerate the lengthening of the body, axially. So broadening and lengthening. And then we're going to lift, palms down, lift up legs, lift up the arms, lift the chest. Looking forward slightly. And then we release down. We're going to do this several times. Okay? Okay, coming up on an inhale, then keeping the breath moving. Releasing down. I'd like you to practice that again. Anywhere between 3 and 8 breaths. Okay, bringing the hands back into the sides of the body again. Pressing back, keeping the elbows nice and close in to the side of the body. Once again, you're going to roll your tailbone well under. So we come back to this balasana stretch. We'll just do this a couple of times. We come in and forwards. And then we come back again. As we come back, we emphasize drawing the tailbone underneath really strongly, filling the lumbar spine, pressing back. Okay, walk your hands a bit further forwards as you draw the pelvis back. And then I'd like you to tuck your tails under and lift up, come back into the downward facing dog pose. So we're structurally and energetically building our practice up through the work of the spine, through the work of the hips, and the work of the legs, especially building up around the back. So we're preparing for what's to come in a little while. So we're going to come down onto the floor again. This time we're going to practice Dvipada Shalabhasana, a different variation. So you're going to bring the hands around the back, okay? Interlocking the fingers if you can. If you find that difficult, you can always just take your elbows, or your forearms rather. If you can't manage to interlock the fingers very easily. Otherwise, if you've got the fingers easily interlocked, then we're going to draw the arms well back before we even start to lift the upper body from the floor. So we're going to draw the arms right down as far as we can, keeping the chin resting on the floor. Legs are engaged. The fronts of the legs are grounding, rooting. And then we lift the hands away before we start to lift the body even. And then we lift the trunk. So the trunk starts to follow. Looking lightly forwards, resting the gaze, resting the face. Keep the breath firm, rhythmic. Shoulders rolling back. Small finger lifting. And then release. Resting the head on one side for a moment. Release the arms down. Once again, to encourage you to interlock the fingers or take an alternative. Okay, you're already lifting and rolling the shoulder blades back and down. That's a really important action for a lot of the upper back work. Roll the shoulders back and down. Extend the arms back and lift the hands away, grounding your legs and your feet, and then start to lift the trunk again. Do that on an in-breath, and then we'll take 5 breaths, so 5 full cycles. So see if you can keep the gaze and the face fairly relaxed. The tongue, the root of the tongue especially, keep that rested in the mouth. So there's a sense always in which we're trying to bring the energetic calmness into the practice, even though the practice might be demanding. We're still encouraging a sense of resting inwardly. Okay, and release down. Take your hands by your chest again, if you will. We're going to press up and back. As we draw the pelvis back, we walk the hands further forwards. We tuck our toes under just as the pelvis comes back to the heels, and then we lift up into downward facing dog. So we're going to practice the dragon and fly from here. The dragon and fly. So, the same energy moving through the legs into the pelvis again to lift. Just continue sweeping up the left leg, lifting it as high as we can, rolling the thigh outwards, bringing the leg across. We try and keep the weight in the legs, the arms even, trunk facing the floor. Yeah. Lengthen out that leg so your leg faces the floor again. Release the leg down, foot down on the floor. Sweep up your opposite leg, crossing over the midline of the body, back of the body. Again, keeping your trunk facing the floor. Weight balance through both of the arms, keeping the neck long. Okay, bringing that foot back down on the floor. And then bring your knees down, your shins down. I'd like you to come back into child pose for a moment. In one form or another of child pose, whichever form you want to take. Have a still point of 20 breaths where we let go of the activity of the practice. So mindfulness is in the body already. It's already there. We can more or less assume there's a certain amount of mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the body position. So it's like your awareness spread through your experience, just picking up on your mood, current state of mind. And just noticing the sense of the mind in relation to the body. So does the body feel more relaxed? Does the mind feel more relaxed? Or does the body feel somewhat tight, contracted, and the mind the same? Or do you have opposites going on in the body and the mind? Okay, we'd like you to come back down onto the front of your body again. I think, as long as we're on a yoga mat, I don't think we'll need a blanket for this. So we're going to practice a more classical form still of Bhujangasana. We've done a couple of variations. There's another variation that is done with the hands forwards, hands down, and the arms straight. Okay, so that's obviously quite a bit more powerful. But we've done quite a lot of good preparatory stages to get here. And of course, you can adjust the pose quite a lot depending upon where you put the hands, right? So if you've got the hands really far back, because you need to keep the pubic bone down, that means it's going to be incredibly intense for the lumbar. So just work into your sub-maximal position with this. Work into not exactly your limit. Okay, you don't want to feel compression, too much compression. Keep in mind the principles of the tailbone tucking under, kidneys lifting to the chest. Okay, looking to the horizon. I tend to keep my feet a bit wider than my pelvis for this variation. Yeah. And seeing if we can not overly work the buttocks. So the buttocks will tend to want to sort of protect and guard the area. But as long as your pubic bone is descending and you're lifting the tailbone, you're lifting the kidneys through the sides of the body, you should find that you don't overly compress the lumbar. Sink the shoulder blades down away from the neck. Keep the face, the root of the tongue soft, looking forwards. Again, utilizing the diaphragm. So at any point it becomes too intense, feel free just to adjust your posture, okay? You shouldn't feel too much compression. It should feel a bit comfortable for your back, okay? It might be a slight challenge, but it shouldn't feel like it's going to cause you to ache. All right, and then we're going to relax down onto the floor. Come down onto the floor. We're going to lift up and we're going to draw the tailbone under again. So we come into the Balasana stretch. As a contrasting movement, you can feel that. You feel how your lumbar spine was temporarily, and the muscles again have worked in the lumbar area. Yep, so we'll do this 4 times, coming back into Balasana stretch. Tailbone tucking well under. Floating forwards. And then bring your knees a bit further forwards, and I'd like you to sit between your feet. So you come into Virasana. Okay. Feel free to use a block if you want to do that. It's okay. We'll bring your pelvis up off the floor a little bit more. Want your feet fairly close in, but don't bring them in more than the width of your pelvis. Okay. So we're going to do, first of all, sort of provisional ustrasana, and then for those that want to, the more classical ustrasana, and you can choose how you come into that pose, okay? So don't feel that you've got to come into full ustrasana. I'm just offering it as a part of the lineup of the sequence, but you can practice that, or just do this again if you want to, okay? So just centering the attention again in the body, come back to the spine in particular here. We're going to bring our hands back beyond our shoulders and rest the hands back fully on the floor. As you do that, think about your tailbone lifting forwards. So you're bringing the tailbone, just as you've been doing already, forwards and up. Okay, and then from there, you're going to reverse the shape of the upper spine. So whilst you're lifting the pelvis in that way, then lift the heart center, as if being drawn up to the sky, yeah, through your sternum. So tailbone lifting and heart center lifting. And then from there, we're going to continue to lift the groins away from the floor. Really grounding the shins, activating the thighs, lifting away, the shoulders moving away from the arms. So there's really a sense of strong action of moving away from the floor, the back of the body away from the floor, up to the sky. Looking where you want to look with the head, keeping the gaze forwards or keeping the head back. Maintain this for a few more breaths. And then sit down for a moment. If you need to free your legs for a bit, and just come forwards and straighten your legs out a few times. If you don't need to do that and you want to come into the full classical ustrasana now, we want to think about a slightly different way of coming to this to what we've just done. So what we do here is we actually keep the tailbone back the opposite way, so we reverse the instruction here. We're not first of all going to bring the tailbone under, we're going to let it draw back. And we're going to come up halfway, just halfway, into a kneeling position, and then lift the chest, draw the arms back. Okay. So you've got your tailbone going back in the opposite direction to the way that we did before to start with. That will change in a moment. And we're emphasizing arching the upper spine. Yeah, that might be enough for some people that just want to do that for a while. If you're going to come all the way up into Ustrasana, make sure that you've got a really strong engagement through the legs. So now bringing the tailbone forwards and under, and we arch back. Okay. And then we come, if we want to, come onto the heels, one way or another. There's a powerful pressing away forwards with the thighs, grounding the legs through the shins, lifting the heart. Great pose once it's set up and you're in it and working. Great pose for the whole back of the body, and the front of the body stretches. Come forwards. As you come forwards, remember, bring your pelvis back first, and then the front of the body, the trunk and the head to the floor to rest for a moment. So it's driving a lot of energy through the spine and the front of the body and the back of the body, this pose. Anything from here upwards in terms of back bends become very powerful poses for the whole structural integration of the body. And they energize us, of course. So we're just going to do that one time tonight. We're going to do that again. So to come back into downward facing dog. Grounding and breathing. Grounding the hands, grounding the feet. You can keep the periphery of the body awake, alive. Looking forwards. So you just want to shift your weight forwards onto the hands a bit more and off the feet. You're going to bring your right knee forwards towards the hands, between the hands, far forward as you can. Yep. And then you might want to bring your right foot to the left side. Depends on what happens on your hip and your knee. And you're going to walk your back foot back so that you lower the pelvis down to the floor more. Okay. So this is the pigeon pose, isn't it? Or Kapotasana. So make any adjustments you need to make before we come into the more full expression of the pose. Either bringing the foot out and forward slightly. Okay, you want to keep this knee in line with its hip on the same side. Okay. And then you can keep some engagement through the back leg. Same principle now. So tailbone tucking under, lifting the kidneys, lifting the chest. You create this nice but spacious lengthening and arching through the spine. So we're not looking to mount up the compression in the lumbar spine here. As you keep a sense of lengthening and opening. Gazing forwards to the horizon, keeping the face soft again. As soft and rested as we can. Drawing back the shoulders, opening the heart. So you're effectively easing into the pose in stages, and this is the refinement within the posture, is working out how to maximize the energetic lift and movement through the pose. And if you want to come into the sleeping swan version, sometimes called the swan, sometimes called the pigeon. Resting forwards if you want. If you don't want to do that, then just go straight in and practice on the other side. Okay. So the resting forward version, as you can sense, becomes a passive pose compared to the activity of the more classical swan. Yeah. So you can't help but be passive here. Okay, placing your hands down again, coming back into the classical swan once again. Re-engaging the action, the activity of the leg, trunk lifting. And then we're going to slide this leg back, but we'll just come into all fours, okay? Not to downward facing dog. And then we're going to slide the opposite knee forwards. And then making an adjustment you need to make by sliding the leg back, lowering the pelvis, drawing the left foot towards the right side. Okay. Engaging the lift through the base of the hands. Keep the kidneys moving away from the waist. Dropping the pelvis down. Heart center looking forwards, gazing forwards. And then if you want to come into the lying swan version, we come down now. So we go from the action to the passivity or the receptivity. Okay, return to the more classical upward lifting form of the pose. A few breaths there. Then come into downward facing dog. Okay, you're going to start to bring the practice down now. So we've gone from ustrasana. I'm going to start bringing the practice down. So I'd like you to sit down with your legs in. So we've got a few more postures to practice before we come to headstand, or whichever inversion you're going to practice. So now I'd just like you to sit in sukhasana, for example. Whichever posture we can come into, that just allows us to keep the spine axially straight, lengthening, interlocking your fingers nice and closely at the bases of the fingers, pushing the finger bases in together a little bit. Broaden the hands and press the hands forwards, and then lifting your thumb side of the hand up above. So you just encourage and clarify the lengthening principle. Axial lengthening principle. Yeah, and that engagement with the roots of the fingers and the lifting of the thumb just stops us and prevents us from badly articulating the shoulder blades, so we can keep the shoulder blades in position. Lifting the thumbs. A few more breaths. I'm going to move into simple seated twist from here. Elbows pressing in lightly towards each other and palms lifting. And then see if you can maintain that lift in the spine that you developed. And then you're going to rotate to the right side. So just take your hands to any place you want to take them that offers a bit of a support. Heart and right shoulder rolling back, and then turning the neck gently to look back behind you to one side. Keeping all the apparatus of the senses in the face and the head rested. So the ears and the eyes and the mouth all rested. Okay, from the center, just going to raise up our right arm as we left arm as we come round to the left side. So even in the simple poses, there'll be a number of refinements that you do either automatically or, through instruction. So looking at ways in which you refine the poses. Refining the poses, refining your awareness. So you do two things at the same time. You bring more subtlety into your practice and you develop awareness of your practice, as well as the rest of you. Okay, back to the center. So now what we'll do with our remaining time is Matsyasana. So we're going to do the fish pose. And then from there, we'll use that as a platform to come into one or other inversion. And if you want to do the simplest inversion, then you just take your legs up against the wall. If you don't want to do headstand, or you can even do shoulder stand as well if you want. So there's in a way, a number of options. Before we do that, we'll come into Matsyasana with your legs straight out in front of you. You're going to roll back onto the elbows first of all. So different versions of this pose. I'm not really a great fan of doing it with the elbows because it tends to overemphasize the extension of the neck, and so I prefer to take the hands down behind and underneath the buttocks. So I catch the underneath the buttocks and the thighs and rest the elbows further in, but further down as well towards the hips. And then lifting the heart center, really clear away from the floor. Draw the head back and rest the head down. So you touch the ground with the back of the crown. And you're lifting the heart center well away from the floor. Pointing the toes. Pointing the toes, lifting the heart. But you're supported on the background of the head. Okay, resting down on the floor. You can rest the arch, flatten the back, bring the feet onto the floor to semi-supine position. Taking hold of the knees, you're going to float the knees in and out 10 times. Floating the knees in and floating them out. All right, and then I'd like you to practice your inversion. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that maximum, okay? in your own time. Do any closing postures you want to do coming out of the inversion posture. I'm going to suggest once you've done your closing postures that you come into Shavasana. We'll make sure everybody does at least 5 minutes Shavasana. After that, we'll meditate a bit. Just let your body melt, as it were, on the floor for a while. We'll move into a meditation period for around about 15 minutes. And if you want to stay in semi-supine position, you can do that. Otherwise, set yourself up in a sitting position. Okay. So letting awareness drop back into the body in whatever posture that you find yourself in. So the awareness encompasses all of you. And then I would like you to rest your attention somewhere around the crown of your head. I'd like you to imagine or get a sense of a small disc on the crown of the head. Small disc is like 3 centimeters, 4 centimeters in diameter. And this disc on the top of the head, which we'll get a sense of, or we can perhaps visualize, is beginning to shimmer. So it's white. And it's like a light that becomes gradually brighter and more intense. Now this disc shape begins to descend down through the head, and it creates a column as it descends, so it becomes longer, keeps its same round shape, but it becomes longer. And it extends down just in front of your spinal column. So you can imagine this light, it's made of light, it's not a solid object. Descending down through the column, all the way down towards the base of the pelvis. And once it reaches the pelvis, you're going to imagine that this column of light begins to radiate and emit light, which gradually begins to fill the whole body. So it's a very soft experience, not harsh. It's not a blistering light, it's just a very smooth light, that, like fog, like a cloud. Feels the entire body and the shape of the body, and then begins to extend beyond the body, radiating beyond what we talk about as the end or the surface of the body, in all directions of space. So this cloud of light is calming and purifying, grounding, cleansing. All the eclipses of the heart, all the turmoil, emotional turmoil, thoughts, they dissolve in this light. We just let it go. Anything that doesn't feel balanced, anything that doesn't feel like it's any longer supporting us, we just let it go. So cleansing and calming. So now we may decide to start to let the light withdraw, or we might want to stay here a bit longer in this space. So if we're ready to withdraw, we let the light come back into the body, gradually receding back into the cylinder or the tube in front of the spine. And this tube begins to recede again, becoming shorter and shorter as it moves towards the crown of the head. And we just let that image dissolve into space, and we just rest in whatever sense of calm we've managed. Okay, feel free now to let the practice go, or just to carry on sitting if you want to.